Hello, everyone. My name is Ellen Lipton, State Representative from the 27th District, and I'm also the co-chair of the House Democratic Task Force on School Reform, as well as the Democratic Vice Chair of the House Education Committee. And with me today are colleagues from the House, as well as my task force co-chair, Representative Brandon Dillon from Grand Rapids, task force member and former teacher, Representative Colleen Lamont from Montague, task force member Tommy Starworthy from the City of Detroit, task force member Doug Geis from Taylor, task force member David Rutledge from Ypsilanti, and others. And I'm incredibly thankful for all of you to be here with us today. As some of you may have heard, there has been talk recently that the House is going to vote on an expansion plan for the Education Achievement Authority. That is House Bill 4369. As you know, the EAA has been used as a tool that the state uses to take over local public schools and put them under the control of the state. It's already been used in 15 schools in the city of Detroit, and they've been under the EAA management since September of 2012. We're now a year and a half into what we believe is a very dangerous experiment, and it's clear that the EAA is not doing what it set out to do and what it promised the citizens of the state that it would do. As we were told, the EAA was supposed to take over the state's most challenged schools and turn them around. Last year, I, as well as many of my colleagues and many of you in the audience, visited the schools to talk to the students about what their school is like. And this is what we were told. Many students feel incredibly unsafe in these schools, and many told me that they felt like they had been put in prison. We observed that computers have virtually replaced human teachers. And the software that's being used to teach students is childish and unchallenging, and oftentimes insulting. Many parents and teachers parents of children with special needs told me that these children are not getting the support and accommodations that the schools are legally required to provide to them. We have heard incredibly high rates of turnover, both amongst the teaching staff as well as amongst the students themselves, and also on the EAA board. We know that 2 EAA board members have resigned out of profound concerns about the EAA and its effect on our children. And quite frankly, parents and children are quitting the EAA itself. We know that the student count in the fall showed that enrollment had dropped by more than 2,000, as students and parents have fled the EAA and pursued an education elsewhere. The EAA has also been extremely secretive. Unlike our local school districts, the EAA doesn't have regular board meetings. In fact, the meeting that was in February was summarily canceled and rescheduled, and that happens time and time again. And they don't hold meetings in the community in which they are operating schools. And as many of you know, when I tried to get what I thought was very basic information about what is happening in the EAA, as a member of an education committee that was questioning the data that was being provided by the chancellor, I was forced to file a Freedom of Information Act request and was told that I would have to pay over $2,600 to get the information, which I did do. But I ask you, what citizen of this state can afford to pay $2,600 to get basic questions What about news organizations that are trying to get information? What about the parents of children that are trying to get information? What about members of this legislative body that are trying to get information? What does that say about an institution that is requiring repetitive filing of Freedom of Information Act requests and the paying of substantial amount of dollars over and over again just to get basic information about what's really happening in this organization? Ultimately, these concerns about safety, about lack of resources and proper accommodations for our most vulnerable children, about the quality of education that's being delivered, and the teacher turnover, and most importantly, the secrecy behind the EAA, all of these point in one direction, and that the EAA is not working. It's as simple as that. It is not working. And in fact, most importantly, the EAA has failed to deliver the results in terms of improved academic outcome, which is ultimately the promise that was made as a condition of this experiment. Representative Tommy Starworthy, who represents parents and children affected by the EAA, would like to say more about that. Representative Starworthy.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Rep. Lipton, and I thank you for your leadership and tenaciousness on this issue. I say that in all sincerity. As she stated, I'm State Representative Thomas Starworthy. I represent the 7th District located in Detroit, and I chair the Detroit caucus. I actually have 3 EAA-run schools in my district, 3 of the 15, one of which I graduated from, Mumford High School. And so I have some particular interests in how well the EAA is performing and whether or not they are able to keep the commitments that were made. The matter is extremely important to me and my neighbors, and I talk daily with alumni, with students, with parents who share concerns that Representative Lipton laid out relative to the prospective success of this experiment. The fact of the matter is it's not gone well in the last year and a half. It is, from my perspective, a failed or failing experiment at best. It is a failed model. Of those in our caucus, I've probably had the greatest opportunity to work with the administration of the EAA and the administration of schools and teachers. They're all good people. I think well-intentioned. I believe well-intentioned. But it's a poor model. It's a model that was described, as Rep. Lipton laid out, replacing teachers with computers. It is a model administratively that's burdened with facilities, some of which we are concerned were plucked and may still be plucked in the future. What I mean by that is Mumford High School, our community invested millions of dollars in a brand new building. The community is very concerned that buildings like that were selected for the EAA over buildings whose performance was poorer. And that selective placement in the EAA still is a possibility under the new statute. But probably what's most important is that the EAA's Chief Accountability Officer, Mary Esselman, told legislators that 57% of the EAA students were not on track to make annual progress. Keep in mind again that the EAA, and we were all there at the beginning, was established to aggressively intervene and reform schools that were persistently on the low achieving list. And so if we are failing to show progress under this model, clearly we have to be concerned about any expansion. I want to again reiterate those numbers. 57% have failed to make annual progress, and on top of that, another 52% are expected to not make progress in reading. All of these children deserve services. They deserve our best. It is through no fault of their own that they live in an impoverished community, in a community that is struggling. And I know that my colleagues and you, those of you in the audience, are supportive of the turnaround in Detroit and the effort to bring our great city back. The quality of education is key to that turnaround. And if we're going to have an EAA or any form of intervention, it must be held accountable for delivering results. In closing, let me, and before I introduce or bring Representative Lamantia to the mic, I want to reiterate the seriousness of the concerns that have been articulated relative to the mistreatment of special ed children, those in our community who are most vulnerable. I've personally had the opportunity to sit down with teachers and with parents, and I've seen written complaints relative to the decertification of these special ed students, the failure to put individual learning plans in place, and these are atrocious complaints. We certainly have an obligation to investigate, to review, and to ensure that our most needy children are receiving the kind of care and attention that they deserve and as is required under law before having any discussion about expansion. And so with that, I'd like to bring Representative Colleen Lamantia to the mic to talk more about this failed experiment. Colleen.
Thank you, Representative Starworthy. I'm Colleen Lamantia. I represent the 91st District in Muskegon County. I have been a math and science teacher for several years in urban schools. Plus, I have 2 children that also attend public schools, and so the issue of schools and improving our schools is definitely something that is a concern and a priority for me. I have visited some of the EAA schools in the Detroit area, and what I saw was, at best, concerning, but it was also disturbing. That's why I am so puzzled that House Republicans are eager to expand this EAA model when it has obviously failed. But that is precisely what they are set to do. House Republicans are now ready to bring up House Bill 4369 for a vote, a measure that would open the door to the EAA's expansion to schools across the state. That means that the same school reform model that has failed in 15 schools in Detroit could be coming to a neighborhood school near you. Let me ask you, do you want teachers replaced with computers? Do you want to send your kid to a school that can't be held accountable? If you have a child with a learning disability or needs an accommodation to be able to be successful in their classroom, do you want them to go to a school that ignores that need? Recent reports have alleged incidences of teacher and staff abuse of children in the EAA schools. In fact, a report from the EAA Chancellor, John Covington, confirmed that 4 staff members have been terminated or resigned after investigations into those incidents. As a teacher, we are bound by state law, which to be watchguards over every child's well-being. We are legally obligated to report all incidences of suspected child abuse. The idea that the abuse coming here, the suspected abuse coming here is coming from within these schools at the hands of school staff is horrifying to me. I know I don't want that kind of school for my kids or for my community. It's reckless and fiscally irresponsible to move forward with a school reform model that hasn't worked. Instead of rushing to expand the EAA, we should be enacting school reform models that actually work. Sadly, that's not happening here, not yet. But the good news is it could. Here to tell you more about that is Representative Brandon Dillon. Brandon?
Thank you. Thank you, Colleen, and thank you to my colleagues who've spoken as well. I'm Brandon Dillon. I represent the City of Grand Rapids, and I'm the co-chair of the House Democratic School Task Force, along with Representative Lipton. Like Lamantia was saying, there is some good news. The good news is we've already introduced an alternative to the EAA that would go a long way towards helping schools turn around and give all of Michigan's kids a chance at a bright future. Those bills are House Bill 5268, introduced by Representative Lipton, and House Bill 5269, introduced by myself, along with co-sponsorships from many, if not all, of my colleagues in the House Democratic Caucus. House Bill 5268 would set up an educational transformation process for the state's most challenged schools. That process would include evaluating the curriculum, educational strategies, staffing patterns, parental and community involvement, infrastructure, and school safety. It would be a process that includes parents, community members, and educators. Overseen by this new school reform office, that process would result in a turnaround plan custom tailored to the school in question. It is the complete opposite of the one-size-fits-all, Lansing knows best solution offered by House Republicans. The second bill, House Bill 5269, creates a statewide study to truly understand the cost of educating our children. We understand that the needs of each district and each school are different. Schools located in high poverty areas have different challenges to meet than schools in more affluent areas. Rural schools, where students live far away from their school, have different transportation needs than a school in a densely populated area. Schools that educate a large number of immigrant or refugee children need more funding for English as a second language or other programs that would help them in relation to other schools. However, the way we fund school now doesn't take any of that into consideration. Before we can seriously talk about how to properly fund our schools, we need to understand, at the minimum, what our schools' basic needs are. My bill would make sure we gain an understanding of that so that we can make the best decisions in the future about how much school funding we should appropriate. Taken together, these bills from Representative Lipton and myself, and all coming out of our school reform task force and hearings across the state, taking input from educators, parents, community leaders, and people who've studied this issue for a very long time, represent a real step forward for Michigan schools. These are real solutions, not just a state takeover of a local school that yields no positive results. I urge House Republicans to work with us, slow down on this bill, work with us to create real long-lasting school reforms that actually improve our schools.